Hi, everyone. I think we're live. Rod, you there?
Good morning, or
Yeah,
hello, wherever you may be.
right. And we're both in two different places. Thank you for joining two of four of us. My name's Julia Hers. I'm the executive director of the American Homebrewers Association and absolutely through and through a home brewer. Rod, can you quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Rod Wall. I homebrew out of right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. I've been brewing for about 6 years, and I love everything about the homebrewing experience. Honestly, I do.
Totally. And we had not met before really getting the chance and opportunity from Jen Price for this amazing seminar, or I guess, conversation, we shall call it. Make beer at home for rewards in your life and your career was my requested line and topic. Rod was kind enough to join us. I'm sad to say that Robin James and Jeremy James had personal conflict that absolutely prevented them from fulfilling this conversation and the time they would have given. So we're gonna make them proud with the two of us, Rod, and
Absolutely.
yeah, and give you some information that really makes the case on why homebrewing is rewarding, not just for your life but also for your career. And with that, Rod, let's kick it off. Why don't you, what do you want the world to know about why you homebrew and, your approach to having it as a hobby and even part of what you're working on?
Oh my gosh, the world. Um, I would like the world to know that anybody can make great homebrew, but with my approaches and how I do it, I want to make beer not just for me, but for everybody else. So that's where I get a lot of my true core feedback. So it's not necessarily following a book to get to where I want to go, but more so touching with the people and saying, what would you like to drink? And bringing that to a broader base. So it goes from, an idea in your mind of, oh, I think this would be a great beer to, oh, he made it happen. So I want to be thought of as that guy that makes the drinks that I think about.
I love it. And the freedoms on homebrewing, and I'll add to that from my perspective is, A, we're busy learning about what's going on in beer styles and the marketplace from what craft brewers are brewing. But at home, we're tinkering in a very innovative way, in a free way. There's really no handcuffs on what we can do. And frankly, today, homebrewing has become this robust hobby of beverage fermentation. It's
Mm-hmm.
kombucha, it's cider, it's mead, it's sake. Homebrewers are dabbling in seltzer for sure, and it's beer. So I love what you just said. And on my end, what I would want the world to know about homebrewing and why I do it still to this day, and I've been doing it since my 20s, is because it gives me a sense of being at home in a deeper way. I love the carboy bubbling in the corner of my bedroom. I can see it, I can smell it, I can hear it if I get close enough. It can hear me. The yeast is affected by, vibration and music and sound and voice. So it's such a powerful hobby in that way. So I think that kind of is a good start to what we're going to lead into for anyone here listening, in encouraging you to A, get back into homebrewing if you haven't homebrewed in a while, and start it if you've never tried, for so many professional development reasons and empowering, nurturing reasons, frankly, in your day-to-day world. And with that, Rod, how has homebrewing, helped your life and what you have going on in life?
I've been able to make a lot of great connections just outside of my immediate family, but just finding uh, a way to build things around the home because my honestly my wife is the one that introduced it to me because she suggested that I start brewing. Um, but there have been a couple times where my kids have actually helped me brew a beer. Being my little sous chef, adding ingredients, uh, getting the boil kettle ready, pouring water in or something like that. So it builds bonding moments like that. So not just with my family, but then outside when I talk about beer at work, you find out about how many people around you actually like or love beer or would like to get into it. That becomes an entirely different conversation. So you're just connected with people that you see every day, just on other levels, and just making that connection with coworkers. I always enjoy that part too.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially on the other levels. I'm able to talk to people that work in the brew house in a firsthand understanding way because I brew. When you
Mhm.
brew, it shouldn't be assumed that you professionally brew. It should be, are you a home brewer? Are you a professional brewer? Are you both, right?
Mhm.
And that totally makes sense to me. I'd say how it's helped me is it's given me confidence working in the beer biz and fermented beverage kind of a world, and I'll call it, food and beverage. Being able to talk sensory, being able to understand beverage and hospitality and the business side of that much better, because I brewed. I've dabbled in a deeper way that many people might not understand. And one of the stats we commonly share at the American Homebrewers Association is there's an estimated 1.1 million people in the United States, and I know we have a global audience, but in the United States that brew. And I'll share a little bit of statistics later on after we get a little bit more of Rod's story. And what I want to know, Rod, is before you take us to where you are today, because I'm super inspired in what you're doing and using homebrewing for, it's hard to get started. It's an overwhelming hobby. It's as overwhelming as saying, I'm going to start paragliding, right? Wow,
Right.
where's the equipment? I'm going to start rock climbing. What do I do? I'm going to start building bird houses. How do I make them that are, going to be robust? So, what's your best recommendation that worked for you when you started, Rod, and what helps other people today?
Okay, so really starting out, so my very first setup was a Monster Brew home kit set. It was like a mini bookshelf library. That's why I started with, and in the kit they included the carboy, the grains for the one recipe, I think a mesh strainer and some hops or something like that.
I'm going to share
Um,
screen while you're
okay,
talking of that because you've
that's
got
great.
that.
Yes,
There you go.
yeah. So that's where I started. Um, so just a carboy and that little box, since it contained everything. My wife told me that if I can keep it out the way, then I can keep it going. I was like, oh, perfect. So when I would ferment it, I would put the box in the corner of the dining room because we were in an apartment at the time. I'm sorry, brew on the shelf in a 2 gallon pot because it was an all grain recipe. So that's how I started. Just jumped right off the bridge with all grain. Um, did the entire recipe, put it in the box, cover it, and then let it sit. And I would peek under the towel every now and again to check it out. And what I did to accompany my knowledge in that um, was the first book that she gave me along with this kit was The Complete Joys of Home Brewing. So I read through that to learn about the base practices and of brewing and understand getting a core understanding of that. Um, and then I also piggyback with that on just doing regular YouTube searches because in this day and age, everything is not in a book. I mean, everything that you need to know you can find on YouTube. So I went to YouTube, typed in homebrewing, and jumped down a rabbit hole of just uh, different people taking different approaches, and that kind of helped me to understand starting out as a brewer that there's not one particular way to get it started or get it done. So I took the base things that I needed, and that's how I just jumped off the ledge from there. And just as a kicker, I ran into my garage right before the meeting. Um, and this actually is a bottle of the very first brew that I did.
No way.
Yeah, I held on to it because I'm trying to keep a record of things. So this, the sediment and everything, I'm like, I got to see it. I got to see how it came out. But it was drinkable. So after the other bottles that didn't have as much sediment. So when I found out that it was drinkable, that's what inspired me to continue the search of finding other books, looking through different message boards, and thinking about how I wanted to make beer happen, and seeing how other people have made it, but then still be able to carve my own way through all of that.
Love it. And, our desired outcomes from this conversation are to empower those that have never thought about home brewing to get to the table to do it, A, and B, if you have home brewed but not in a while, get you back in the kitchen or on the patio doing that. And Rod, I will share a little my story real quick. And
Let's.
you brought up the complete joy of home brewing, which certainly is the book that has influenced so many people. And Charlie Papazian, my predecessor at the American Homebrewers Association, the founder of it, and we're now looking at homebrewersassociation.org's website. Our website is the national association that exists today. My membership to the AHA is what got me going. I was at a beer festival and Charlie picked my name out of a hat in the 90s, and I won a membership to the AHA. And I started getting the incredible magazine of Zymergy, this magazine that's been published since 1978. I started getting that in my mailbox every other month. And, to this day, I get whatever I can. There's so many good publications out there. But having my membership gave me reasons to brew, and getting Zymergy religiously every other month really, really helped. And the brewing books also too, I agree. And it's interesting because with this, generational changes, I have a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old, and they're not very book centric. But I will say that go to any established home brewer or professional brewer, and they're going to show you their brew library. My brew library, you're in my home office in Lyons, Colorado. Some of it's right over there, and some of my awards from homebrewing's on the wall. But the books and the notes and the way that I was able to brew on the fly, whether you're looking it up on the internet for the latest recipe, and homebrewersassociation.org has 1,000 plus recipes of clone, gold medal winning. YouTube, you mentioned, wherever you are, the notes are important. So a brew journal to me is a key thing. And Rod, you mentioned, trying to keep track of things in your first beer that you just showed us. If you can go back in your brew journal, I think you have a better chance to replicate recipes and really start to nail them. Because as a home brewer, you could be just one and done. I do a lot of batches like that. But if you really want to perfect something, just like any dish you cook or any brewer that's making a professional recipe, you need to make it multiple times. And so I think that journal and those notes, wherever you're writing them, in your book, in your log, on the internet, in a Word doc, is key to what you do.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Initially, I started out with just a little regular notebook that I gotten from work, in an off cuff, oh, here, appreciation type deal. And then later, my wife ended up buying me a better journal that keeps track of the brewing process, ingredients, and just a better sectioned off journal. And that's been a great upgrade because while I'm not typically a one and done type brewer, because there's still so much that I do not know. Like, I know of styles, I've probably tasted styles, but it hadn't even crossed my mind to try to brew a particular style to have a better understanding of those styles. Because that's how I feel as a beer drinker. That's how I feel I can really attach myself to it, is tasting it and then trying to brew it, so I can understand how those flavor notes are built into that brew. And that's one of the things that really excites me about the brewing process, just really understanding it. That's really kind of what drives my passion behind it. So I guess that really pops the question into me, like, what drives your passion with the beer, with brewing?
I love it. And when you and I prepped and talked for this, you brought up cooking. To me, the sensory side has really been where I've anchored a lot of my efforts. I've co-authored 2 publications at this point: Beer Pairing, the pairing guide for the pairing pros, with me and Gwen Conley, and getting the essence of how to describe what's in the glass, what's the finished product of what I've brewed or what somebody else has brewed, is key. And then also craftbeer.com beer and food course, co-authored with Chef Adam Dooley, who is the executive chef of the Brewers Association. And so to me, that's what drives my passion behind brewing, is getting into the sensory side, understanding flavor, which is a combination of 3 things. It's a triangle of, basic taste: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, umami. And then you have, aromatic compounds as the second component of that triangle, the volatile compounds for aroma, what we smell. And then the third part of flavor is that mouthfeel. And so I just love dabbling and tinkering with where we can drive flavor, right? And then what I've produced, putting it with food, to me is just such an incredible kind of bring it to the finish line type of feel. And then when I'm not doing great in the pairing arena, I'll switch out the beer or have to, tweak the dish. But that's definitely what drives me in brewing today, besides the science, besides the, agricultural connection to the ingredients and the like. And I know, Rod, basically when we talked, you have a biology background, right? In some
Yes.
form.
Yeah,
Doesn't that
graduated with.
tie to your brewing?
It does. It helps me understand the science behind it a little bit more. So it's not just brewing just to try to make drinkable liquid. It's trying to actually understand the numbers and to correctly balance the recipes to build out exactly what you're going to get. So that's part of what excites me about the brewing, and it helps get me through it, because sometimes brew days can be kind of long, and they can be kind of taxing, especially if you don't hit those numbers. But knowing what I'm aiming for, and then if I don't get it right, then how I can tweak it or where I can tweak it. That problem solving, that scientist in me, that's what excites me and keeps me going with that part as well.
Yeah, and that MacGyver aspect, or if that reference is lost on you based on
No, it's not.
cultural assumptions, or some people might not know the MacGyver thing. If you're the tinkerer, the jack of all trades, the one that can figure out hardware, and you're welding and you're building your own equipment and this and that, that's one angle of home brewing. But I've always been intimidated by that side because I'm just not, I didn't grow up in a tool shop that my dad was showing me everything. I like things already set. So on that side, a lot of people are attracted to home brewing because you get to do that. You get to problem solve on the hardware side. You get to think about, the pumps instead of doing gravity brewing when you're transferring, and, taking a kettle and turning it into a mash tun, or a cooler, turning it into a mash tun. So some people really tap into that as one of the main reasons for their passion behind it. But you don't have to. Today, the equipment to me, and we can talk about trends. Let's kind of get there.
Yeah.
One of the things in a lot of the talks I'm giving, and I'm open to talking to any homebrew club or group of people, please reach out. Being new with the American Homebrewers Association, I want to connect with as many homebrewers as possible, present to you and learn from your group. But we've got these newer technologies that have trickled down because craft beer in the US has become so prolific. So solutions on the equipment side have also gotten to that smaller level where, Rod, you showed us a 2-gallon brewing system. You don't have to brew 10 gallons all grain to get it done, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
you can scale it down as small as you need to. You can work it down based on your space, and figure out how exactly you want your. If you're doing it for a bigger scale, then hey, you want to make sure you have enough space, the equipment. But I know some of the things that I was looking at, and when I was considering space, was, do I need to get an all-in-one type setup so that my everything is just in one place? I mash, I boil, I can pull it off and then ferment in one place. Is that going to be a space saver? But when I saw the way that things were going, I decided, well, no, don't need that much space. I have a whole garage now. So I upgraded to, first, from the 2-gallon pot, I went to a 10-gallon kettle, and then I went out and bought 2 more 15-gallon kettles. So basically running at a half barrel capacity at this point.
Wow.
And I decided not to do, after homebrewing it, by myself for about 3 years with the gravity method. I was like, well, it's too intense with the 5 pounds of grain that I'm using. When I get up to 20 pounds of wet grain, what am I going to look like? This is not going to be a good move for me. So I incorporated the pumps and the sparge arms, and added a whirlpool on my boil kettle, just to get some of the aeration in before I transfer it to my fermenter. And I've been afforded the opportunity to have the conical fermenters because that's what I felt was best for me, because I saw the trub that I was getting during my brewing processes. I bought my first catalyst. The second catalyst was actually a gift. And then the third anvil crucible fermenter I was able to get from just selling merchandise, because the merchandise sales that I do actually help me to further the dream of putting that beer that you were thinking about out to people. And the blue cooler at the bottom that everyone's looking at, that was the mash. It was my mash tun initially, but then I made it into a jockey box when I needed to be able to serve beer outside. So I looked up some different people's feedback on those pieces and just kind of made it my own. It was my mash tun. Like I said, then I took everything back off, like bought everything I needed from the homebrew site, and built the jockey box. And it's been working great ever since. I'm actually going to make it into a two spout jockey box in the next couple of weeks.
Wow, awesome. I really appreciate those pictures. I'm going to try and pull up some of my rig.
Sure.
And then also, as I mentioned, get to some stats. But while I'm doing that, because you've now gone from, hey, here's how I started, to this is what I got going on now, which is getting more and more advanced and more volume. Tell us, Rod, what you got in the works as an aspiring home brewer on the, on the forefront of your business.
So right now, I'm still trying to discover the styles that talking to the people, discover the styles that people really like and want. So I've dabbled with making ciders, done several different ciders. I've dabbled in some saisons, stouts, but the biggest thing that I really want to work on, like I said, is understanding the different ciders, because one of the things that I've noticed, people that are jumping into beer, they really don't know where to start. And I've always said or felt that ciders was a good way to transition, because you're still getting a similar mouthfeel, depending on who's making those ciders. They're building them out similar to beers, just without the grains. So you can still get a lot of the similar flavor components. And then what I've also done is paired some of my beers with the cider, so I have a similar profile, like I said, but then I'm going to add the grain so you can see that transition. So your lighter ales or something like that, you can pull back with the cider. So yeah, I'm going to experiment with a radler later this summer, a lemon radler with some local lemonades.
Nice.
And I think that's really it.
Okay. And you're really going for it. You're experimenting and taking it to all places, which is the right and privilege of every home brewer. And so, being on the national level, really advocating for homebrewers to help us reach our goals, giving us reasons to brew when it comes to what the American Homebrewers Association is thinking about. And I know there's a lot on this kind of messy group of slides, but it's a good list of triggers of like the American Homebrewers Association, who's busy supporting the community of homebrewers, 37,000 members today, which is amazing, and been around since 1978. We estimate there's 2,200 homebrew clubs in the U.S., 300 international. Almost 400 clubs are insured through the American Homebrewers Association, 630 homebrew shops, and then even more if you look at the international numbers. And our member benefits are robust and ever growing. And I like to think about in terms of what, we are starting to see is that the demographic of a home brewer is slowly evolving. I will be looking by the end of this year to have buttoned up and have a better handle on today who is the home brewer, but bringing it to the theme of our amazing, the conference, the virtual hybrid and in-person conference that we are a part of today in this talk, Crafted for Action. I'd like to see homebrewing become more, all walks of life feeling like it's a hobby that's accessible. And just by virtue of a Crafted for Action approving this talk, I think is really wonderful. And I know last year the same conference had another talk on homebrewing 101. So wherever you go, I think in the space, we are starting to see that we've got more people feeling like the Club of Homebrewers is open to all. And that's some of the work that I want to continue to further and continue to support. And on that, Rod, how do you feel? I mean, you and I both come at this space from our own areas of diversity representation, in marginalized population land.
Right.
What do you feel the hobby of homebrewing has going for it and against it in terms of bringing more people to the hobby?
For it, at this point, it seems like there's an openness. It's out in the forefront more, and I guess you can grant that a lot to the technology that we have now. So your advertisements are going to reach a broader audience a lot faster, because of your Twitters, your Instagrams, or whatever social media platform you have. So word of what craft beer is or what a particular brewery has to offer can appeal to different crowds at this place, so you can speak to your people better. So that's one of the things that that craft beer has, because when places have a really stout following, those supporters are loyal and they will be there. They will be there to support. But then on the same token, like, not to call any particular brands out, but if there is something that is flawed in the system, it will get out just as fast. So
Right.
your marginalized groups, they're going to hold you accountable at this point. And I think that that's a good move to go in accordance with everything in society at this point. You really want to make sure that all are represented and all feel accepted and safe in your spaces. And craft beer is holding these breweries accountable and holding these brands accountable to make sure that they're welcome in those spaces and they can enjoy the things that they're providing.
I appreciate the eloquent way you put that. And I do think that we are all with social media. And one of the biggest trends in speaking about the topic of what's hot in homebrewing is the social media homebrewer, right? We're all learning from influencers, we're learning from YouTube, we're learning from video, and we're learning to speak our voice, speak up. And homebrewers have a voice. They have a national association. They have representation in every state. They are legal in every state. That wasn't always the case. We didn't
Right.
even reach legalization of homebrewing in all 50 states until 2013. To this day, we still have legislative challenges that are evolving and being fixed and being worked on for homebrewers. Idaho just passed some legislation. Ohio has got some better rights for homebrewers to be able to taste in licensed facilities and share their wares. Because for the hobby to be successful, we need to convene. And
Mm-hmm.
so the social aspect of using our voice is one method to keep things honest, to keep people supported, feeling supported. But the other aspect, I think, is growing how we can share our fermented beverages. They're not licensed because they're not sold. And as
Right.
soon as in the licensing world for beverage alcohol, it has to do with taxes and selling and sales and, paying those taxes to the feds. Since we're not selling, we ask for the right to be able to convene and to be able to share our beverages for analysis, right? To be able to ship them to competitions in different states. We have the HomebrewCon, for example, coming up in Pittsburgh. Please join us June 23rd to 25th, HomebrewCon. You can find out information on the web and homebrewersassociation.org. But we're going to convene 1,000 plus people and thousands of beers to be judged at the National Homebrew Competition during this amazing national gathering that's 44 years strong. That national gathering depends on the aspect of bringing clubs together, being able to have things like club night on site in Pittsburgh, where 30 plus clubs are proudly going to serve each other's beers. The 1,000 plus brewers that have entered the National Homebrew Competition depend on the ability to ship those beers so they can get them to be judged at competition on this national level. So we have a lot that this question, I guess, spurred and taken it a little further to me is making sure that we as homebrewers are supported in the hobby so we can do what we do and continue to bring other people in to do it is essential. For sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because because I've been a member of the Homebrew Association about 2 years. I
Mm-hmm.
just recently stopped being a member just so I could really focus on really perfecting the craft. But I've looked at the schedule for competitions, and that's one of the things I've always thought about. It's like, well, when it's time to ship, what do I need to do? And then it's like, well, instead of jumping down that rabbit hole, I'll listen to how it goes, and or I'll participate at the event, or like go to the event and just as a taster or sample or anything like that, instead of actually submitting something because I don't want to deal with the headache. So even just sending it in has sometimes been a discourage to me, but just like understanding how it needs to be sent. Because I know they have the requirements on the website, but I'm like, well, what if it doesn't get there? And just
Yeah.
sending my stuff out, that's always a question that I've always had, but I know it's always successful for many, many people.
Right, it is. I mean, it is basically their yeast samples for analysis being shipped, not as a sold product. Beer Judge Certification Program, which, by the way, the American Homebrewers Association helped start back in the day, that now has 8,000 plus active judges. I am one of them, proudly on the certified level for BJCP. Their competitions are very robust and in numbers and greatly depend on us homebrewers being confident enough to ship our precious 4 to 6 bottles, whatever the competition is, right? And so you got to have faith when you're shipping it. It is not legal to ship through federal United States Postal Service. Private carriers will ship it for you, and it is not something that you need to you want to pay attention to what you're shipping and labeling it as yeast samples for analysis or some other form, because then you can actually get your beers to competition. So I would say have faith, go with private carriers, and one day I hopefully would love to see things continue to evolve and grow in our ability to ship even more robustly through the federal government. We'll see about that.
Cross fingers.
Cross the fingers, Rod. Okay, so hey, I can't. My question to you, real quick. If you're willing, is so what innovations do you see going on in home brewing? What do you see as like the game changer type of stuff in your circles?
Um, I in my circles, I want to say it's more so on the beer experimentations, because I've talked with a lot of people. They're talking about some crazy beer styles that they're going to be coming up with. People have asked me about trying to run some crazy beer styles. Um, so that's really what it is. So pushing the boundaries of what craft beer really is. So not trying to really change anything, but really just pushing the envelope, really expanding what you're tasting. So in the ingredients used, to build specific flavor profiles. So not just depending on fruits or fruit extracts or anything like that. So really expanding on what you can use to really build a good beer. That's what I have seen. When I saw this question come across, I really wanted to pluck your brain about this one, because I know just through the Homebrew Association, you have the like I said, the magazines, and there's so much more information, even just centered around the technology of brewing, that'd be coming up. So I definitely want to hear what innovations you knew about.
Love it. Eloquently. Well played. Toss back to me. I'll play. Thank you. So I'm going to reshare screen on your brew setup. And forgive me, my brew setup photo is failing to display. I cannot access it. That is, so we're going to look at Rod's setup here. And he mentioned going to the pump system. You see these spike kettles in the middle. That's what I'm referencing. You've got kind of the older era of systems that are multiple kettles, right? A boil kettle, a mash tun, sometimes even a lauter tun, and the gravity fed. Well, this is more of a modern version where Rod setup has pumps, so you are not physically having to lift the equipment. You see these hoses here, these vinyl hoses with physical pumps at the bottom, and I've definitely brewed on these types of machines. That is an innovation and a bit of a game changer, I would definitely say. I'll also say the brew in one systems. If you've heard that phrase, you know what I mean. But if you haven't, brew in one means one vessel. And so you've got so many leaders now in this space, not just one brand, making these systems that are less than $1,000, even sometimes 500, give or take. And I'm not, no, just spitballing. You shop as you shop. But
Mhm.
what it is about is a less expensive entry point to a more advanced system. And these more advanced systems also have the game changer of not needing to be outside with fully vented propane setups, right? You have electric in these brew in one systems. So with electricity and the not needing to transfer the beverage from one vessel to another, I definitely call that a game changer. And then you've got many, countertop style brewing solutions that have come on. Think of Keurig coffee makers, but now you've got, makers of 1 gallon at a time that sits on your countertop. You put in the ingredients. Many of them offer you don't even have to boil, and there's special hops that have already been isomerized. That means that the hops have already been broken down to give you the bitterness components, and you add it so you don't have to go as far along in the process as if you were doing all grain brewing. And those are coming online. So I think the equipment's making it more accessible to many. And the price point on that coming down is what we have seen with many innovations in any industry. As soon as it becomes less expensive, think electric cars, right? They were so expensive in the beginning, and now you're starting to see them in neighborhoods because the price point has become more accessible. That's what changes the game. And so anyone getting into brewing can do easy stovetop, one kettle, or they can get fancier and get electric systems that help you transfer and really act like you're a pro brewer right at home.
Yeah, that's one of the advantages. You build that brewery at the house, and it's as amazing as you make it. Honestly, I know some people would want to just brew just to have the experience, because the thing is, you don't have to make great. If you like to make something that's just really simple, then that's fine. There's just the process of it, and it's something just as simple as going out to barbecue. It's just like the same thing. You're boiling your drink. So that process is just can be honestly, just going out there to mash. Sometimes it can be relaxing because you just sit there. You don't have a care in the world except what's in the pot. Everything can go away for a while, and that relaxation can take place. until you
Yep.
look at the numbers.
Totally. And I think with that, Rod, I feel like we've made the case to say get back into homebrewing if you haven't homebrewed in a while, and also get into homebrewing if you've never homebrewed. I'm just scrolling through just like one even small taste of what we have on the national level, to give you reasons to brew and reliable, authoritative recipes and the like. But the bottom line is maybe wrap it all up, and the outcomes we were hoping those that sat through this came away with is it adds to your home time. It nurtures your home time. Home is the place to be these days, right? And
Yes.
so there's nothing more rewarding than having a batch of brew fermenting in secondary fermentation or primary fermentation or brew day because your friends are coming over and it's sunny out. And then on top of that, the professional advancement, we all need a leg up. We need a chance to get that interview. We need a chance to understand and connect with other areas in the beer biz, even if you're not a professional brewer. And getting your hands dirty and, brewing on your own puts you on a more even playing field and literally will and can and does help advance careers in beer.
Yeah, I've toyed with that thought. Hopefully, I can make that happen. It's on the horizon for me though.
I know you have indicated as such. So I guess I'll wrap it up with, Rod Wall, pay attention to this guy. He's got a lot going on. Thanks for beaming in from Atlanta. I'm Julia Hers. I got a lot going on. Pay attention to me in our social channels. Rod, where do you want people to follow you?
Off the Wall Brewing Co. on Instagram. That's where you'll find all of my good information. It bumps to Facebook as well, but you'll see me there.
Yep. And Julia Hers here in terms of my channels. My personal dedicated homebrewing one that is recently started coming in as the new executive director of the American Homebrewers Association is Immaculate Fermentation. Also, please follow Homebrew Assoc for all that we've got going on the national level, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And then homebrewersassociation.org is our main website that we would ask you to check out, tap into. At minimum, go for getting on our newsletter for free and checking out the AHA forum, which is free. But please, less than $50, join as a member, and we will make it worth your while. And you'll join tens of thousands of people that are in a community that wants to support you.
Thank y'all for tuning in.
All right. Thank you, Mara Lee, for your note. And we'll let Andrew take this away. Love, life, and libations. Thank you all back for listening. Good beers to you. And that's all we got.